The breaking point. The perfect servant. My name is Emma Richardson, and for 12 long years, I scrubbed floors that never seemed clean enough for my husband. I cooked meals that were always too salty or too bland. I ironed shirts with creases that were never quite straight. At least, that's what Daniel told me. Every single day, I lived in a beautiful house in the suburbs of Seattle. 3 bedrooms, a manicured lawn, and a white picket fence that looked like something from a magazine. From the outside, we were the perfect couple. Daniel was a successful marketing executive. I was his devoted wife. Nobody knew the truth about what happened behind our closed doors. Emma, where's my coffee? Daniel's voice boomed from the dining room at exactly 7:15 a.m., like it did every morning. I rushed from the kitchen, carrying his favorite mug filled with fresh coffee, 2 sugars, no cream. My hands trembled slightly as I set it before him. After 12 years, I still felt nervous around him. About time, he muttered without looking up from his phone. And tonight, I'm bringing some colleagues home for dinner. Make that chicken dish they liked last time. And Emma, try not to embarrass me with your conversation, okay? Just smile and serve. I nodded silently. That's what I always did. Nodded, smiled, obeyed. I had become invisible in my own life. But what Daniel didn't know, what he could never imagine, was that the invisible woman serving his coffee was secretly worth $4 million. And she was about to make him pay for every insult, every dismissal, every moment of humiliation. The woman I used to be. I wasn't always this small, this quiet, this broken. Once upon a time, I was Emma Chun, a bright college graduate with dreams of becoming an architect. I designed buildings in my mind, structures that reached for the sky with bold lines and beautiful curves. I had friends who laughed with me. I had ambitions that made my heart race. I had a spark in my eyes that people noticed when I walked into a room. Then I met Daniel at a company party where I was working as a junior designer. I was 26 years old, full of hope and energy. He was 32, confident and charming. He wore expensive suits and talked about his big plans for the future. When he looked at me, really looked at me, I felt special. I felt seen. You're different from other women, he told me on our 3rd date. You're genuine. Real. That's rare. I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. We married quickly. Too quickly. Within 6 months of dating, I was walking down the aisle in a white dress, believing I had found my forever love. My mother tried to warn me. Emma, slow down. You barely know him. What's the rush? But I didn't listen. I was in love. Or what I thought was love. The changes came slowly, so slowly I didn't notice them at first. It was like standing in water that gradually gets hotter and hotter until you realize you're being boiled alive. First, Daniel suggested I quit my job. We don't need 2 incomes, he said sweetly, holding my hands across the dinner table. Besides, wouldn't it be nice if someone took care of our home properly? You're so good at making things beautiful, Emma. Why waste that talent in some office when you could create a perfect home for us? It sounded romantic at the time. It sounded like he valued me, my skills, my abilities. So I gave up my career. I walked away from the architecture firm where I was starting to make a name for myself. I said goodbye to projects I loved and colleagues who respected me. Then, one by one, I lost my friends. Daniel always had reasons why I couldn't attend their gatherings. Sarah's single and jealous of what we have. He'd say about my best friend from college. She's trying to break us up. That book club is just a bunch of bored housewives gossiping. He'd say when I wanted to join. You're better than that. Your family is so demanding, he'd complain. They always want something. Why can't we just have time to ourselves? Each reason sounded logical. Each explanation made sense in the moment. But the result was the same. Within 3 years, I had no job, no friends, no family visits, no identity outside of being Daniel's wife. And that's when the criticism started. This chicken is dry. Didn't I tell you to watch the temperature? Why are you wearing that? You look frumpy. Could you laugh a little quieter? It's embarrassing. Nobody wants to hear your opinion on politics, Emma. Just smile and look pretty. Nothing I did was ever good enough. I was too loud, too quiet, too fat, too boring, too stupid, too everything wrong and nothing right. I shrank smaller and smaller, my voice getting softer, my opinions disappearing, myself fading away until I almost completely vanished. By year 5, I barely recognized myself in the mirror. The bright, confident girl who designed buildings was gone. In her place was a shadow, a servant, a woman who apologized for breathing too loud. The hidden fortune. What Daniel never knew, what I never breathed a word about, was that 3 years into our marriage, my Uncle Robert passed away. Uncle Robert was my mother's older brother, a successful businessman who never married and never had children. He owned a chain of hardware stores across the Pacific Northwest and invested wisely in real estate. Growing up, Uncle Robert was my favorite relative. He encouraged my dreams of becoming an architect. He took me to construction sites and showed me how buildings came together. "Dream big, Emma," he'd say. "The world needs more women who build things." When the lawyer called me to his office, I went alone. Daniel was at a business conference in Chicago, and I didn't think much of the appointment. Mr. Harrison, Uncle Robert's lawyer, was an older gentleman with kind eyes and a serious manner. "Mrs. Richardson," he said, gesturing for me to sit. "Your Uncle Robert was very fond of you. He's left you his entire estate." I blinked, not understanding. His estate? Yes. After some specific charitable donations he requested, the remainder comes to you. That's approximately $3 million in liquid assets, plus some property holdings. The room spun. I gripped the arms of the chair to steady myself. $3 million. The number was so large it didn't seem real. "Mrs. Richardson? Are you all right? Should I get you some water?" I'm fine," I whispered. I had no idea." Mr. Harrison smiled gently. "Your uncle was a private man. He didn't believe in flashing his wealth. But he believed in you, Mrs. Richardson. He mentioned you often in our conversations. He was very proud of your architectural dreams." Past tense. My architectural dreams were past tense now. I'd given them up for Daniel. Mr. Harrison pulled out a sealed envelope. "He also left you this letter. He gave it to me 2 years ago with specific instructions to deliver it personally when the time came." With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. Uncle Robert's familiar handwriting filled the page, and tears blurred my vision as I read. "My dear Emma, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I hope I lived long enough to see you happy, but I suspect I didn't. I've watched you shrink since you married Daniel. I see how small you've become. How quiet. How unlike yourself. I'm leaving you this money because I see something in your husband that worries me. I see a man who needs to control. A man who needs you to be small so he can feel big. I've tried to talk to you about it, but I know you can't hear it yet. Love makes us blind sometimes. This money is your safety net, your escape route, your power. Don't tell Daniel about it. Keep it secret until you need it. And Emma, I hope you need it to fly, not just to survive. You were born to build beautiful things. Don't let anyone make you forget that. Don't let anyone convince you that serving coffee is your highest purpose. The world needs architects like you. The world needs women who dream big and build bigger. This money is my final gift to you. Use it wisely. Use it to remember who you really are. Love always. Uncle Robert." I sat in that leather chair in Mr. Harrison's office and cried. Really cried. Deep, gasping sobs that came from somewhere I'd locked away for years. Someone had seen me. Someone had understood. Even as I was disappearing, Uncle Robert had been watching, waiting, preparing to save me. "Take your time," Mr. Harrison said quietly, passing me a box of tissues. When I could finally speak again, I asked, "What do I do now?" Mr. Harrison leaned forward. "Well, that depends on what you want, Mrs. Richardson. Your uncle gave me specific instructions. He wanted this money to go to you and you alone. He set up a special trust account that only you can access. Your husband would have no legal claim to it, as it's a direct inheritance kept completely separate. Daniel doesn't need to know about it. Not if you don't want him to know. In fact, I'd advise keeping it confidential. Your uncle was very clear that this was for your protection. That day, I signed all the papers. The money went into a private account at a different bank across town, a bank Daniel would never go to. Mr. Harrison helped me set up smart investments, diversified portfolios that would grow the money safely. He gave me his card and told me to call anytime I needed help. I never mentioned it to Daniel. Not that day, not that week, not that month, not ever. It sat there, growing steadily, while I scrubbed Daniel's floors and bit my tongue through his insults and made myself smaller and smaller. 9 years passed. The money grew to nearly $4 million with careful investments. But my life stayed exactly the same. Small, quiet, invisible, a servant in my own home. Why didn't I leave? I asked myself that question 1,000 times. The answer was complicated. Fear mostly. Fear of being alone. Fear of admitting failure. Fear that Daniel was right about me, that I really was stupid and worthless and nobody else would want me. And shame. Shame that I'd let myself become this person. Shame that the confident girl who designed buildings had become the woman who apologized for existing. But mostly, I think I was asleep. Sleepwalking through life, numb to everything, just surviving day by day. Until the day I woke up. The day everything changed. It was a Tuesday in October. I remember because it was trash day, and I'd just brought the bins back from the curb. The Seattle sky was gray, threatening rain, and the autumn air had that crisp edge that makes you think of pumpkins and fallen leaves. I was in the laundry room, folding Daniel's expensive work shirts, when I heard laughter from the living room. Strange, because Daniel never came home early. And he certainly never laughed like that at home, not with me. His laugh with me was always mocking, derisive. This laugh was different. This laugh was warm, genuine, happy, curious. I set down the shirt I was folding and walked quietly toward the sound. My heart was already beating faster, some instinct warning me that something was wrong. That's when I saw them. Daniel was on our couch. Our couch where we'd watched movies during the early years. Our couch where we'd celebrated anniversaries before he stopped caring about those. Our couch where I'd cried silently so many nights after he went to bed. He was sitting there with a woman I'd never seen before. She was younger than me, maybe 30 to my 38 years. She had long dark hair that cascaded over her shoulders like silk. She wore a red dress that hugged her curves, the kind of dress I would never wear because Daniel always told me I looked ridiculous when I tried to dress up. They were sitting close. Too close. Daniel's hand was on her knee, casual and possessive. His other hand held a glass of wine from the expensive bottles he kept locked in the cabinet. The bottles I was never allowed to touch because they were too good to waste on everyday drinking. They were looking at each other and laughing about something on her phone. The intimacy between them was obvious, comfortable. This wasn't new. This had been going on for a while. My heart stopped beating. The world narrowed to just that scene. The basket of laundry slipped from my hands, and Daniel's carefully folded shirts scattered across the hallway floor. The noise made them both turn to look at me. The woman's face showed surprise, but not guilt. Her eyes swept over me, taking in my plain jeans and oversized sweater, my hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, my face free of makeup because Daniel always said I looked desperate when I tried too hard. But Daniel? Daniel looked annoyed. Not guilty, not sorry, not embarrassed. Just annoyed that I had interrupted them. The same look he gave me when dinner was late or when I asked him a question during his favorite TV show. "Emma," he said sharply, "I thought you were doing laundry." I couldn't speak. My throat had closed completely. I stood there, frozen, staring at my husband with another woman on our couch in our home. The woman stood up gracefully, smoothing her expensive red dress. She looked at me with barely concealed amusement. "Daniel, you didn't tell me your housekeeper would be here today. I thought you said she only came on Thursdays." Housekeeper. She thought I was the housekeeper. In my own home. The woman I'd cleaned for 12 years, whose floors I'd scrubbed, whose windows I'd washed, whose life I'd organized and maintained, while giving up everything of my own thought I was the hired help. Daniel laughed. He actually laughed, a sound that felt like knives in my chest. "Emma, this is Melissa. She's my new executive assistant at work." He gestured casually, as if this was completely normal. "We're discussing an important project for a client pitch tomorrow." He looked at me with those cold blue eyes I knew so well. Eyes that used to make me feel special and now only made me feel small. "Could you make us some coffee?" he said, not asked. Commanded. "And maybe bring those cookies you baked yesterday. The chocolate chip ones." 12 years of marriage. 12 years of service. 12 years of making myself smaller and smaller. 12 years of swallowing my voice, my dreams, myself. And now I was being asked to serve coffee to my husband and his mistress in my own living room. Something inside me cracked. Not broke. Cracked. Like ice on a frozen lake when winter starts to end. Thin lines spreading across the surface, growing wider, getting ready to shatter everything. I felt it happen. I felt the numbness I'd lived in for years start to split apart. And beneath it, underneath all that ice, I felt something I hadn't felt in so long I'd forgotten what it was like. Anger. Pure, clean, white-hot anger. Of course, I heard myself say. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. Distant. Calm. Dead. I'll bring coffee right away. I turned and walked to the kitchen on autopilot. Behind me, I heard Melissa say something in a low voice, and both of them laughed again. That same warm, intimate laugh. The awakening. My hands moved mechanically in the kitchen, filling the coffee maker with water, measuring out grounds, arranging cups on the tray. But my mind was somewhere else entirely. My mind was finally waking up after 12 years of deep sleep. I thought about Uncle Robert's letter, words I'd read 100 times over the years, but never really understood until this moment. This money is your safety net, your escape route, your power. I thought about the $4 million sitting in that secret account across town. $4 million Daniel knew nothing about. I thought about the woman in the red dress who thought I was the housekeeper, who laughed with my husband on my couch while drinking my wine in my home. I thought about Daniel's annoyed face when I interrupted his affair. Not guilty, not sorry, just annoyed, like I was an irritating insect that had buzzed into the room at the wrong time. And I thought about who I used to be. Emma Chun, the girl who designed buildings that reached for the sky. The girl who had dreams and ambitions and fire. Where had that girl gone? I looked down at my hands, red and rough from years of cleaning. I looked at my reflection in the microwave door, a tired woman with dull eyes and slumped shoulders. This wasn't me. This had never been me. This was what I'd let Daniel turn me into. The anger grew hotter, spreading through my chest like fire through dry grass. But it wasn't the explosive kind of anger that makes you scream and throw things. This was different. This was cold anger and hot anger at the same time. This was strategic anger. This was anger that could plan and wait and strike at exactly the right moment. The coffee finished brewing, and I stood there staring at it. I could pour this coffee. I could bring it to them on a tray with my homemade cookies. I could smile and serve and pretend I didn't see what was right in front of my face. I could continue being invisible. Or I could stop. I could just stop. Use it to remember who you really are. Uncle Robert had written. Who was I really? I was Emma Chun. I designed buildings. I had dreams. I was worth $4 million, and I didn't need to serve coffee to anyone ever again if I didn't want to. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. This was the moment. The moment everything changed. The moment I stopped being Daniel's servant and became myself again. I scrolled through my contacts to a number I'd saved years ago but never called. Patricia Martinez, the best divorce lawyer in Seattle. I'd read an article about her in a magazine 3 years ago, about how she helped women escape difficult marriages and get justice. I'd saved her number in my phone under plumber so Daniel wouldn't see it if he ever looked through my contacts. I'd been planning to leave even then, I realized. Some part of me had been planning this for years. My finger hovered over the dial button. Once I did this, there was no going back. Once I set this in motion, everything would change. From the living room, I heard Melissa laugh again, high and carefree. I heard Daniel's voice, warm and affectionate in a way he never was with me anymore. I pressed dial. Martinez Law Firm. How can I help you? A professional voice answered. My name is Emma Richardson, I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. I need to schedule an appointment with Patricia Martinez as soon as possible. I'm filing for divorce. Of course, Mrs. Richardson. Let me check her schedule. We have an opening tomorrow at 10 a.m. Would that work for you? Yes, I said. That's perfect. Great. Can I ask, has your spouse been served yet? No. He doesn't know I'm doing this. And I need to keep it that way for now. There was a pause. Then the receptionist's voice changed, becoming warmer, more knowing. I understand completely, Mrs. Richardson. Ms. Martinez specializes in cases exactly like yours. She'll help you develop a strategy that protects you. Just one more thing. Do you have somewhere safe to stay if you need to leave quickly? I have resources he doesn't know about, I said quietly. I'm not the helpless housewife he thinks I am. Good, the receptionist said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. We'll see you tomorrow at 10. I hung up and looked at the coffee tray I'd been preparing. Then, very deliberately, I picked up the carafe and poured every drop down the sink. I watched the dark liquid swirl away, and it felt like watching 12 years of my life disappearing down the drain. Good. Let it go. Let it all go. The sound of laughter still drifted from the living room. Let them laugh. Let them enjoy this moment. Because they had no idea what was coming. They had no idea that the quiet woman in the kitchen had just woken up. They had no idea that Emma Chun was back, and she was done serving anyone but herself. I picked up my phone again and sent a text to Mr. Harrison, Uncle Robert's lawyer who still managed my secret account. I need to access my funds. All of them. Can we meet this week? His response came within minutes. Tomorrow at 2 p.m.? Come to my office. I'm glad you're finally ready, Emma. Your uncle would be proud. Tears stung my eyes, but I blinked them back. There would be time for crying later. Time for mourning the years I'd lost. Time for grieving the person I'd let myself become. But right now, in this moment, I needed to be strong. I needed to be smart. I needed to be the architect I was always meant to be. Only this time, I wasn't designing buildings. I was designing my escape, my freedom, my revenge, and it was going to be perfect. First steps to freedom. I didn't bring them coffee. I left the kitchen and walked straight upstairs to our bedroom. Behind me, I heard Daniel call out, "Emma, where's the coffee?" I didn't answer. For the first time in 12 years, I didn't answer when he called. I heard footsteps on the stairs, heavy and irritated. Daniel appeared in the bedroom doorway, his face red with annoyance. "What the hell, Emma? I asked you to make coffee. Melissa is downstairs waiting." I turned to face him calmly. "Then you can make it yourself?" "I'm not feeling well. I'm going to lie down." His face registered shock, then anger. "Excuse me? Since when do you talk to me like that?" "Since now," I said simply. "I'm tired, Daniel. I need to rest." He stared at me, trying to process this sudden change. I could see the calculations running behind his eyes. Should he yell? Should he threaten? Should he try to intimidate me back into submission? But Melissa was downstairs, and he needed to get back to her. "Fine," he said finally, his voice cold. "But we're going to have a serious conversation about your attitude when my guest leaves." "I look forward to it," I said, and closed the bedroom door in his face. I heard him stomp back downstairs, heard him apologizing to Melissa, making excuses about my mood. I didn't care. I sat on the edge of the bed, my heart racing, and marveled at what I'd just done. I'd said no to Daniel. Such a small thing. Such an enormous thing. That night, after Melissa left and Daniel spent hours in his study avoiding me, I lay awake in our bed and made lists in my mind. Not grocery lists or chore lists like I usually did. These were different lists. First, I listed every humiliation, every insult, every time Daniel had made me feel worthless. The list could fill a book. Then I made another list. This one was shorter but more powerful. It was a list of what I wanted. Freedom from this marriage. My self-respect back. Justice for 12 wasted years. A new life where I chose my own path. To be Emma Chun again, not Daniel's servant. I stared at the ceiling in the darkness and whispered those goals like a prayer. For simple things. 5 things that seemed impossible yesterday. But today, with Uncle Robert's $4 million and my own awakening anger, they seemed possible. More than possible. They seemed inevitable. The next morning, I made Daniel his coffee as usual. I set it before him with a smile. He looked at me suspiciously, still angry about last night. But I acted completely normal. Obedient. Invisible. "I have some errands to run today," I said casually. "I'll be out for a few hours." "What errands?" he asked sharply. "Just the usual. Grocery store, pharmacy, dry cleaners." He studied me for a moment, then went back to his phone. "Fine. Just make sure dinner is ready by 6. Melissa is coming over again tonight to finish our project." "Melissa? In our home? Again? For dinner this time?" "Of course," I said sweetly. "I'll make something special." The lie came easily. Years of practice. At 9:45 a.m., I parked my car in the lot of a gleaming office building downtown. I took the elevator to the 15th floor, to the offices of Martinez Law Firm. The receptionist smiled warmly when I gave my name. "Mrs. Richardson, Ms. Martinez is ready for you. Right this way." Patricia Martinez's office was impressive. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Seattle skyline. The walls were lined with law books and framed certificates. Behind a large mahogany desk sat a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes, silver gray hair cut in a perfect bob, and a smile that was both kind and fierce. "Mrs. Richardson," she said, standing to shake my hand. Her grip was firm and confident. "Please sit down. Tell me everything." And I did. I told her about the 12 years of criticism and control. I told her about giving up my career, my friends, my identity. I told her about yesterday, about finding Daniel with Melissa in our living room, about being mistaken for the housekeeper in my own home. Patricia listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally, but mostly just watching my face with those sharp, intelligent eyes. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. Emma, I'm going to ask you a question, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Do you want to save this marriage? No, I said immediately, without hesitation. I want out. Completely out. Are you sure? No part of you wants to try counseling or give him another chance. I'm absolutely sure, I said, and I'd never been more certain of anything in my life. I don't love him anymore. I don't even like him. I just want to be free. Patricia smiled, and it was the smile of a warrior preparing for battle. Good. Because from what you've described, your husband is a textbook emotional abuser and a narcissist. Counseling doesn't work with men like that. They just use it as another platform to explain why everything is your fault. She pulled out a fresh legal pad. Now, let's talk about resources. What are we working with financially? I need to understand the complete picture so I can develop the best strategy. This was the moment. The moment I'd been waiting for since I sat in Mr. Harrison's office 9 years ago. Daniel thinks we have about $200,000 in combined savings and retirement accounts. The house is worth around $600,000 with $300,000 left on the mortgage. So roughly $500,000 in accessible marital assets. Patricia nodded, making notes. That's good. In Washington, we have community property laws, so you'd be entitled to half of all marital assets. Given the length of your marriage and the fact that you gave up your career at his request, you might get more. You'd also likely qualify for spousal support. So you're looking at maybe $250,000 to $300,000 from the settlement, plus ongoing support. That's enough to start over comfortably. And, I said quietly, I have $4 million he doesn't know about. Patricia's pen stopped mid-stroke. She looked up at me slowly, her sharp eyes widening. I'm sorry, what? $4 million. My uncle left me $3 million 9 years ago. I invested it wisely and never told Daniel. It's in a completely separate account at a different bank. He has no idea it exists. Patricia set down her pen very carefully. For a long moment, she just looked at me, and I couldn't read her expression. Then, slowly, she began to smile. It started small and grew until it lit up her entire face. Emma Richardson, she said, I think I'm in love with you. That is the smartest thing I've heard in my 20 years of practicing family law. I felt myself smiling back, a real smile that came from somewhere deep inside me. My uncle told me to keep it secret. He said it was my power. Your uncle, Patricia said, was absolutely right. Okay, this changes everything. With that kind of safety net, we can play hardball. We don't have to worry about you ending up destitute. We can fight for what you truly deserve, not just settle for whatever Daniel offers to make this go away quickly. She leaned forward, her eyes gleaming. Here's the critical thing, Emma. Daniel cannot know about this money until the absolute last possible moment. In fact, ideally, he should never know. Since it was an inheritance kept completely separate, it's your separate property under Washington law. As long as there's been no commingling. There hasn't been, I interrupted. Not a single penny. Separate account, separate bank, different investments. I've never even mentioned my uncle's name to Daniel. Perfect. Then here's what we're going to do. We're going to document everything. Every instance of his affair. Every penny he's spending on his mistress. Every text, every photo, every hotel receipt. We're going to build a case so airtight that when we file, he won't have room to breathe, let alone negotiate. How do we do that? I asked. Patricia picked up her phone. I'm going to connect you with the best private investigator in Seattle. Her name is Karen Zhou, and she's a magician at gathering evidence. She'll follow Daniel, document his movements, photograph everything. Washington is a no-fault divorce state, but evidence of infidelity still matters for asset division and spousal support, especially if he's dissipating marital assets on his affair. Dissipating marital assets? Spending your shared money on his mistress. Those expensive dinners? The wine? Any gifts he might be giving her? That's marital money he's wasting on his affair. We can claim all of that back in the settlement. The predatory gleam in Patricia's eyes matched something awakening inside me. This wasn't just about escaping anymore. This was about making Daniel understand that actions have consequences. This was about justice. How long will all this take? I asked. Gathering evidence? 4 to 6 weeks. We need to establish a pattern, not just document one incident. Can you handle staying in that house for 6 more weeks? Can you keep up the pretense? I thought about 12 years of pretending, 12 years of playing a role I hated, 12 years of being someone I wasn't. I'm an expert at pretending, I said quietly. Patricia reached across her desk and squeezed my hand. Not for much longer, Emma. In a few months, you'll never have to pretend again. You'll be free. You'll be yourself. And you'll be very, very wealthy. She outlined the plan. I would go home and act completely normal. Karen Zhou would start surveillance tomorrow. Every time Daniel met with Melissa, every penny he spent, every hotel they visited, it would all be documented. Meanwhile, I would keep a detailed journal. Every insult, every instance of control, every time Daniel made me feel small. Dates, times, specific words. It would all matter in court. One more thing, Patricia said as I prepared to leave. Daniel might sense something's different about you. People always do once they've decided to leave. If he confronts you, don't admit anything. Don't argue. Just be your usual compliant self. We need these 6 weeks to build our case. I understand, I said. And Emma? Patricia's voice was serious now. If you ever feel unsafe, you leave immediately. You call me, day or night, and you get out of that house. Your life is more important than any divorce strategy. Do you understand? I understand, I said again. But I'm not afraid of Daniel. Not anymore. As I rode the elevator down, I felt something I hadn't felt in over a decade. Hope. Real, solid, powerful hope. And underneath it, like a river gaining strength, I felt my anger. Not the hot, explosive kind that makes you do stupid things. This was cold anger. Strategic anger. The kind that plans and waits and strikes at exactly the right moment. At 2 p.m., I sat in Mr. Harrison's office as he explained my financial position. For $1 million, wisely invested, earning solid returns. What do you need, Emma? He asked kindly. I need to be able to access it quickly if I have to leave fast. And I need to understand exactly what I have so I can plan my next steps. You're leaving him, Mr. Harrison said. It wasn't a question. I'm leaving him, I confirmed. He smiled, the same kind smile I remembered from 9 years ago. Good. It's about time. Your uncle would be very proud of you. That evening, I came home and made dinner for 3. I roasted chicken with rosemary and garlic, made creamy mashed potatoes, steamed fresh green beans, and baked an apple pie from scratch. I set the table with our good china and lit candles. When Daniel came home with Melissa, he looked surprised. What's all this? I wanted to apologize for being rude yesterday, I said, smiling warmly at both of them. It was wrong of me. You're welcome in our home anytime, Melissa. Melissa looked confused but pleased. Daniel looked suspicious, but he couldn't argue with my obedient behavior. All through dinner, I played the perfect hostess. I served them, refilled their wine glasses, asked Melissa polite questions about her work. I was charming and pleasant and completely invisible, just the way Daniel liked me. And all through dinner, I watched them. I noted how Daniel's hand brushed Melissa's under the table, how their eyes met in private jokes, how comfortable they were together, how long this had clearly been going on. I smiled and served dessert and made mental notes of everything I saw. When Melissa finally left and Daniel went upstairs, clearly relieved that I was back to my normal self, I pulled out my phone and texted Patricia. Surveillance can start tomorrow. He's completely unsuspecting. This is going to be easier than I thought. Her response came quickly. Perfect. Document everything tonight while it's fresh. Every detail matters. We're going to make him pay for every moment of this, Emma. I promise you that. I stood in my kitchen, cleaning up the dishes from the dinner I'd made for my husband and his mistress, and I didn't feel angry anymore. The game of secrets. Playing the perfect wife. 6 weeks. That's how long Patricia told me I needed to gather evidence. 6 weeks of pretending everything was normal while my world was secretly burning down around Daniel's feet. The first week was the hardest. Not because I was sad or conflicted. Those feelings had died the moment I saw Melissa sitting on my couch. No, it was hard because I had to suppress the fire burning inside me. I had to be sweet and obedient when every cell in my body wanted to scream the truth at Daniel's face. But I did it. I played my role perfectly. Every morning, I woke up at 6 a.m. and made Daniel's coffee. 2 sugars, no cream, served at exactly 7:15 a.m. Every evening, I had dinner ready at 6 p.m. sharp. I ironed his shirts with military precision. I cleaned the house until it sparkled. I smiled when he criticized me. I nodded when he lectured me about how I should behave. I became the perfect invisible wife again. Except this time, it was an act, a performance, and I was giving the show of my lifetime. Emma, Daniel said one morning during the second week, I have to say, you've been much more pleasant lately. I'm glad you've gotten over whatever mood you were in. I poured him more coffee, smiling sweetly. I realized you were right. I was being difficult. I'm sorry for that. He patted my hand like I was a good dog. That's my girl. See, things are so much better when you just cooperate.